Hi there. I thought you might be interested in an article that came out regarding a speech that Erika Cheung did yesterday to a group of entrepreneurs in Sydney, Australia. Does she regret blowing the whistle on Elizabeth Holmes and Sonny Balwani? No. She said she would do it all again. So I'm going to give you the highlights from this article that was reported in the Financial Review. Hats off to the reporter Jessica Sear for reporting on this. Thank you very much. So let me give you the highlights of what Erika Cheung said. And this kind of gives you a view into what whistleblowers go through. And by the way, anyone who takes the stand, whether it's a witness, a victim, a party, they're all whistleblowers, right? So, hi there, I'm Michele Hagan. I'm a legal analyst, a former prosecutor, and someone who's worked with a lot of whistleblowers. You know, I prosecuted a lot of child abuse, molest cases, and domestic violence, worked with victims, sexual harassment, employment discrimination, and they all stood in the shoes of Erika Cheung. What do I do here? Do I speak up? Do I say anything? Do I file a complaint? Do I sue the company? Do I take the witness stand? I myself have been a whistleblower many times, so I get it. So let's go through the highlights, and I'm also going to take you back to that letter that Elizabeth Holmes and Sonny Balwani sent Erika Cheung. And also we're going to take a look at the text. We'll get him, said Elizabeth Holmes to Sonny Balwani. So 2 videos to look at. If you wanted, I did a deeper dive. You can look at the revealing text. It's the whistleblower text video. You can see the exact text between Elizabeth and Sonny, and I'll just do a little snapshot here in this video. And also to take a look at the video I did on did Elizabeth Holmes threaten Erika Cheung? And we're going to take a look at that letter just briefly. Okay, so this video is for education and information purposes. I want to know what your analysis is. So let's look at what Erika Cheung went through, right? What she was going through before she took the witness stand and what's been going on since. All right, so Erika Cheung said it was never her intention to put its founder, Elizabeth Holmes, in jail. And she says she was simply trying to prevent widespread damage to public health by speaking out. Remember, she was asking questions. She had sent emails between the group that was working in the lab. You know, she was letting Adam Rosendorf know that there was discrepancy. She was one of the sources. If you look at the whistleblower video I did, Erika Cheung, Tyler Schultz, Adam Rosendorf, and Rochelle Gibbons were also some of the sources to John Carreyrou, who was the investigative reporter who wrote that Wall Street Journal article that came out in 2015 that blew the whistle on Theranos. Okay? So Erika Cheung said, and it was at the Australian Financial Review Entrepreneur Summit in Sydney, Australia yesterday. That's a mouthful. She said that it was the only option for her to come forward. She would do it all again. She's now a co-founder and the director of ethics and entrepreneurship. She says blowing the whistle on Theranos was the hardest thing she's done. She also, by the way, Erika, if you see this, please do write some books on an instruction manual for whistleblowers. The only behavior I was really looking to mitigate was to stop them from processing patient samples. She was saying, hey, just to let you know, I have discrepancies. Things are not working right with the machines. There's emails. It came in as evidence in the trial. It wasn't necessarily that I wanted to see the company go under and I wanted to see Elizabeth and Sonny go to jail. I was like, you just need to stop doing this one action, doing tests on patient samples. She was in her 20s at the time, early 20s, when she spoke up. I joined this company on the mission to provide affordable and accessible health information for patients and was really committed to seeing that through. But the reality was we were potentially endangering the lives of patients. We could be giving them false information about what their health status was. And in fact, that was some of the evidence that came into the trial. albeit Elizabeth Holmes was not convicted on any of the patient counts. Sonny Balwani was, okay? We had several of the patient counts related to false HIV test, false prostate cancer test, and a false miscarriage, right? So endangering the lives of patients. That's why Erika Cheung came forward. The disparity between what I set out to do and what was actually happening. It did not matter how rough the road got. It did not matter what was going to happen to me personally. Whistleblowers will tell you this all the time. I stood up because patients were put at risk. I stood up because the public needed to know this information. I stood up because my niece was being molested. I stood up because one of my coworkers was being discriminated against. I stood up. You can fill in the blank. It takes courage and strength to stand up and speak the truth in a time in which people are being canceled, people are being threatened, people are being surveyed, followed, stalked, etc. It takes guts to come forward. Believe me, I know. Okay? And many times I have counseled many people who've asked me, well, the jury's not going to believe me. He or she's going to threaten me. Here, I'm going to lose my job. I can't take the consequence to my family. Yes, it's up to you on what you do. You have to weigh, and it's a difficult place to be, to weigh the consequences. You know, they threaten that they're going to ruin you. They're going to harass you and may even kill you. All of those serious things to consider. But what's the alternative, right? What's the alternative? You know, for some people, you know, let's take a molest case or a domestic violence case. They don't want to come forward or they don't want to put the child on the stand, or they don't want to testify themselves. And again, it's up to you. You know, you can be subpoenaed, but it's up to you whether or not you testify. So, you know, weighing the alternative of being silent and taking that secret with you, the cost of that, to being possibly complicit on what's going on, to not standing by someone who has the courage and the strength to stand forward and stand up and say what the truth is. And just as Erika was standing right there, weighing those consequences out for herself, when she got that letter, and I'll show you the letter in a second, she said it was her only option. And when you get to that point, it is your only option on whether to speak up and to speak the truth. And you know, for some people, maybe they can live with the fact that they don't want to lose their job, so they're going to stay silent. Or they don't want to lose their relationship, so they're going to stay silent. Or they don't want to lose, you know, whatever it is, so they stay silent. You know, maybe it's because I've been to a lot of rodeos, as they say. You know, maybe there are just two kinds of people. There are the people who do the right thing and the people who don't. And Erika Cheung stood forward and she did what she thought was right, which was to speak out. So she said she eventually resigned from the company, and I think it was April of 2014. And she alerted the medical authorities. She went to the CMS, the Center for Medical and Medicare Services. She was one of the sources, and I believe she filed a complaint with them about what was going on at Theranos. She also had to endure tactics such as personal surveillance. She said those 3 years when she was waiting for it to come to trial, waiting for her to testify, those 3 years were some of the hardest years of my life, because living in that kind of uncertainty about what was going to happen. Yeah, that's what they hope. You know, they hope they can put you in fear. They hope they can get you to run for the hills. They hope they can get you to remain silent. The uncertainty about what was going to happen to me, she said. And where were those people who had committed these crimes going to retaliate against me? She was afraid. And I think Tyler Schultz's father, I think, testified that Tyler slept with I think a knife or some kind of weapon because he was worried that he was going to be killed. You know, these are things that people have to weigh, right? They have to consider. She was worried about being retaliated against. Would your career be ruined? All of those things that I've heard people say over the years. Would the jury find it truthful? In the end, I just had to say I've done literally everything I can do. Everything I could do. You know, when you come forward, you can't control what a jury is going to do. You can't control what a judge is going to do. You can't control what the opposing side is going to do in cross-examination. Your mission, if you want to accept it as they say, is just to say what happened. You know, it's that old detach from the outcome. The truth shall set you free, as they say. Just to stand up and to speak out about what happened, about what your concern is, and you can't, there is no guarantee that you will be believed. But that's, you know, that's where we have to kind of, you know, we have to summon the courage to stand up and speak the truth, to testify to what we saw, to testify to what was happening in the lab, to testify to what the results were, to testify to the abuse or the molest or the violence that was going on, or to the fraud that was occurring, right? There's no guarantee that you will be believed, but there's power in just saying it. Okay. She said that whistleblowers need to prepare for immense and persistent pressure if they plan to speak out about unethical practices. Yeah, that's what they hope they can do. They hope they can intimidate and threaten you and put you in fear so that you stay silent, or that you cancel your family members, or you threaten your family members who want to come forward and say what truly happened. There's so much gaslighting that goes on. You really doubt yourself through the whole process. You see, this is about you. This is about you standing up and saying what happened. Okay? And going through all of that, of summoning the courage and the confidence and the strength to stand up and say and to speak the truth. It takes guts. I know. Okay? You can get confused about what the truth is. All those mental mind games, those emotional mind games, especially if you're surrounded by people who are doubting you and who are threatening you and who are putting you in fear. Staying strong, okay? You can't get confused about what the truth is and what's going on. Staying firm and committed is really a hard thing to do in practice. Yeah, it is. But there are no regrets. And what's the alternative? Taking that secret with you to the grave, being possibly complicit. You know, you have to weigh out, I'm not judging anyone. You have to weigh out the consequences. It's your life, and you need to decide what's the best course of action for you. In the majority of whistleblower cases, she says, they don't see completion. It's not about completion. It's about speaking up. And even if you've stood up for something so important, it might not work out the way you want. Right? Like I said, there are no guarantees that you're going to be believed when you take the witness stand. Right? But do you just want to say nothing? I mean, it's up to you. I didn't know if justice would be served. Well, I'll tell you this much. There's a lot of justice in when you're able to speak, as opposed to being silenced or to being threatened or to be intimidating. Because, you know, it's like the bullies in the playground. When they hit you once and you take it and you don't do anything about it, they're going to keep coming after you. Right? So, there's power in speaking up. It was a relief, but the real reward was the bliss. She calls it bliss. The real reward was the bliss that I have knowing that I was able to do the right thing. In that context, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually is amazing, and it is. The truth the truth shall set you free. I get to sleep at night. Let me say this again. It was a relief, but the real reward was the bliss that I have of knowing, I would say the peace that I have knowing that I was able to do the right thing. Because can you imagine staying silent and knowing this is continuing? I mean, we can just look at history or look at even present day about people staying silent or allowing themselves to be silenced when terrible things are going on. It was the right thing in that context. Emotionally, intellectually, spiritually is amazing. I get to sleep at night. Yes, she does. And she gets a lot of, a lot of thanks from a lot of people, because if this had continued, who knows what would have happened. And she's also a great example for all of us. At her young age, in her early 20s, she knew she had to stand up and say something. And it may not be something where you testify or that you sue someone. Maybe it's just filing an anonymous complaint. Maybe it's just asking a question in a business meeting. Maybe it's just doing a little research to find out, is this correct? Maybe we should be doing something else. And you'll know what your course of action is or what the right thing to do is because when you start to speak out and you start to get the intimidation or the threats or the retaliation or all of that, or even, let me just show you, and I'm not suggesting this is an intimidating tactic. You can take this into the context yourself and you can evaluate it. But let's take a look at that letter that Theranos sent Erika Cheung. This was sent June 26th of 2015. Keep in mind, Erika had quit about 14 months earlier in April of 2014. She gets this letter hand delivered. And I did this. I went over this letter in the video I did about did Elizabeth Holmes threaten Erika Cheung? So you can take a look at that video. But here's this letter, and it was hand delivered. Not mailed, hand delivered. Yeah, how would that impact you, right? So it's redacted. This is the court. This is the exhibit from trial. So the redaction was done at trial. I didn't do this. But anyway, you can read it. And again, it's in the video. It's a firm. It's the attorney sent her a letter saying they represent Theranos. They're worried about her disclosing so-called trade secrets, when really Erika Cheung was coming forward talking about the problems with the technology, which the jury ultimately found that Elizabeth Holmes, one of the representations, was the technology was fast, accurate, and reliable, which was one of the allegations in the indictment. The jury came back and found that she defrauded investors and conspired with Balwani to defraud investors. She was acquitted on the patient counts. But here's a letter, telling Erika Cheung in her 20s, she gets this letter. Come forward if we're going to file a suit against you. If you wish to avoid litigation. They're claiming that she violated the confidentiality agreement because they're claiming that this was all trade secrets when Erika Cheung was saying, no, there's a problem with the technology here. So they give her, these attorneys give her this letter. Can you imagine getting this letter? Give her this letter to tell her to gather all the information, turn it over to them, rat out who you talk to, identify all the persons who you discussed this with, and then look at number 6 and 7. You have to submit to an interview by outside counsel. Who are they? The attorney sending the letters are saying outside counsel is going to interview her. I mean, who complies with this? And if you get this kind of a letter, go talk to a lawyer. Find out what what your options are here. Submit to an interview by outside counsel. Number 7, execute an affidavit under penalty of perjury, certifying your compliance with the above conditions and additional points to be discussed with Theranos attorneys. Oh, come on. Who complies with this? Really, if you get this kind of a letter, again, please go talk to a lawyer about this. Additional points? You mean they're going to come up with what you're going to agree to? Oh, come on. Again, this is just my opinion. And then they tell her that we're contacting others. Be advised that we are also contacting others with whom we have reason to believe they may have breached their confidential obligations and or defamed the company. Look at this letter, you guys. You tell me. You tell me, what was this letter about? Okay? So I want to show you another thing is to look at the text between Elizabeth and Sonny when they were trying to figure out who's the source to John Carreyrou. Who's the source? Who's the one that gave a terrible negative review from someone from the Newark lab? This was evidence entered in the trial. These are the texts between, on the left here, this shows you, it says Holmes iPhone. That's from Elizabeth Holmes' iPhone. These are the texts that they captured. This was Sonny Balwani sending this text about who gave the negative review. Elizabeth says, I saw it. We'll get them. That's what she says about her employees. We'll get them? Oh my gosh. I am narrowing this down in CLIA, the CLIA lab. They're trying to figure out who gave this negative review. And then if you read through these texts, and again, go look at the video I did on the revealing the whistleblower text, because I do a deep dive and it's more thorough than this. I'm just giving the highlights. Sonny says, I'm narrowing down the CLIA down to 5 people, the 5 people that they think were the whistleblowers, or who may have written this negative review. Adam Rosendorf, Tyler Schultz, Erika, and Rochelle Gibbons, right? And what does Sonny say to Elizabeth? We'll nail this mofo. She says we'll get him. He says we're going to nail the mofo. They're talking about their employees. Elizabeth says we have legal grounds, right? Because they wanted, that's that trade secret letter. She talks about it's Tyler thinking about George Schultz, his grandfather, former Secretary of State. There's a lot of legal elements. Elizabeth is thinking about, protecting trade secrets, which I think, maybe a reasonable interpretation of that would be really maybe possibly what they were trying to do is, not have any questions about the technology. Elizabeth says, out of all challenges are our greatest opportunities. By the way, Elizabeth Holmes has started her prison sentence, right? She's sentenced to 11 years in prison. Out of all challenges are our greatest opportunities. Again, don't estimate Elizabeth Holmes here. Don't underestimate her. They talk about the email based on Tyler, and it was Rochelle at that time. And then Sonny says, it is Tyler, Eric, and Adam. So they were doing these texts between each other, trying to figure out who were the whistleblowers, who were the ones giving a negative review, who was starting to talk about the technology, who was, who were the potential whistleblowers to John Carreyrou. So, Erika talks about the gaslighting, the immense pressure, the anxiety that she was under. But yet the real reward was doing the right thing. So I encourage you, see something, say something, step forward. Because the alternative, carrying secrets, being complicit, I don't know, you weigh it out. Speaking the truth or holding a secret. It's your call. And if you ever get threatened or intimidated or harassed, do something about it, right? Do something. It's up to you. Talk to someone. Tell someone. If you have to sue someone or if you get wrongfully terminated because you spoke up, you were a whistleblower, go talk to a lawyer. So hats off to Erika Cheung, Tyler Schultz and his wonderful scatter plots. You can look at that video when Sonny responds, Tyler needs a math tutor. When Tyler stands up and speaks out, look at the video I did about Tyler calling out Elizabeth Holmes. Adam Rosendorf, who also took the stand, and he testified that he had spoke up about things. These are examples of whistleblowers. And whistleblowers do the right thing. So I encourage you all to do the right thing. So thanks again. Thanks again for watching. Please hit that like button. Please share these videos. What's your analysis? please leave a comment. And if you want to contribute to me making these videos, I'll put a link, PayPal link in the description box below the video. Thanks again for watching. And thanks to Erika Cheung and Tyler Schultz and all those other 30-some witnesses who took the stand in those trials for speaking their truth and for giving the jury the information for the jury to weigh out, to decide whether to find Elizabeth Holmes guilty or Sonny Balwani guilty or whether to find them not guilty. So the jury came back finding Elizabeth Holmes guilty on 4 counts, Sonny Balwani guilty on 12 counts. He was sentenced to, I think it's 12 years, 12 years, 11 months, and she was sentenced to 11 years and 3 months, and they're both in prison because people stood up and spoke the truth. So thanks for watching. Have a good week.